All right, welcome all. I think it takes a couple of minutes for everybody to filter in when we open up. So I'm going to give about 30 seconds to give time for everybody to log in there. So if you've just joined us, give us just a few seconds for the room to fill up, and then we will get started. All right, I see it's still going. We're filtering in, so another few, but it looks like we're almost there. We almost have everybody in. Okay. All right. 8:01. It looks like we've got the room filled. So let's kick it off. Welcome first of all. Welcome everyone who's here with us tonight to the MIT Executive MBA Entrepreneurship panel. My name is Sarah Massey. I am Associate Director for Admissions and Advising for the Executive MBA program. In addition to our panel, the real treats of the night, I'm joined by two colleagues from our office tonight. So I'm going to pass it to each one of you to say your name and introduce yourself real briefly.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Little. I'm a marketing assistant with the team. And tonight I'm just going to be focusing mostly on technical aspects, but I'll also be monitoring the Q&A.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Deborah Mahar. I'm an admissions advisor with the program, and we'll be talking a little bit later about faculty and opportunities at MIT.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so our agenda today, I'll begin by talking about the Executive MBA program, giving a really brief overview and talking about entrepreneurship within our program. Deborah's then going to talk about entrepreneurship and leadership at MIT. And then we'll get to the fun part of today, the Q&A with our three alumni. So let's kick it off talking about the program. And all right, before I say anything about the program, really the place that we always begin, if you've been to another webinar, we talked about this. If you have graduated from the program, you have this memorized. So Ian, Megan, and Bami, you're hearing this yet again, but you could probably recite it with your eyes closed. MIT is a mission-driven organization. And our mission really is at the root of everything that we're doing. So the mission of MIT is to advance knowledge and educate students in science, technology, and other areas of scholarship that will best serve the nation and the world in the 21st century. And as part of MIT, Sloan is in this really amazing position to take the science, technology, scholarship, learning from MIT and translate that into organizational capabilities in many types of organizations. So our mission is to develop principled and innovative leaders who improve the world and generate ideas that advance management practice. You'll hear this probably through stories that people are, if you're talking to alumni, you'll hear this in stories they tell. It's carved in the wall on the staircase that you walk up to get to class every day. So this is really the first thing we say whenever we talk. Now, the Executive MBA program, our EMBAs are in a really amazing position because they are currently working in organizations. They're in a position where they can immediately implement our mission, put it into practice in the real world. This is really special to MIT. The Executive MBA program is an MBA program. You're earning the same degree as the traditional 2-year MBA at MIT. It's the same requirements for graduation and credit unit equivalent units to graduate. So this is a real degree from MIT. Our format, it's in an executive format though. So that format spans 20 months, so less than 2 years, across 26 weekends. Approximately every 2 to 3 weeks, you'll be coming to campus. On the weekends, you'll be here with us on Friday and Saturday. So we consider our weekends all day Friday and Saturday. You will also, in addition to those 26 weekend sessions, you'll come for 4 week-long modules. So you'll be on campus for a week at a time, 4 times. It's about every 6 months those modules will take place. So overall, expect to be coming to campus each month, at least once, and some of them, about half of the months, you'll be coming twice. In addition to those times on campus, there's 1 week in your second year where you have the opportunity for an international trip. This takes place as part of a larger class that you'll be doing in your final semester. So it's a months-long project, but 1 week of travel. So that's the overall format. Now, the classmates or the group that you'll be surrounded by is a class of 126. So you'll have about 125 classmates in your cohort. In the class of 2023, which is where all of our numbers today come from, but is very similar to all the classes that we've matriculated and really representative of what you can expect to see in the class for the most part. Our average, we have 90% are at the director level above in their organization. The average age is 41 with 17 years of work experience, and 33% of our class are women. 67% are non-local, meaning they live outside of Massachusetts, and that aligns really closely with the panel we have today. We're flying in and one driving in from Massachusetts. About half of our class is born internationally. So 50% exactly half in the class of 2023, born internationally. So many might live in the United States right now, but this 50%, the thing that I like about that is how closely it aligns with MIT faculty. If you look across the entire institute, that's a pretty similar number. 14% of our class, of the US citizens in our class, self-identify as with either races or ethnicities that are underrepresented in higher education. And 60% of our class holds another advanced degree before they come here. So that might be an MD, a JD, various master's degrees across a number of disciplines. The one area where everybody is consistent is that all of our students are employed full-time. It's a requirement for matriculation, and when we talk about the curriculum and the actual learning component of the curriculum, that will make a little bit more sense why we make that requirement. In the class, 6% are founders of their current organization. So that's a subset of our entrepreneurs, or the people who are entrepreneurs in their career, but 6% are founders of their current full-time organization. In a typical class, I think this one in particular, another 6% have been entrepreneurs in the past, right? Have started a company, maybe it might be something a business that they have on the side, or one that they've had in the past. And we'll talk a little bit later about those people who become entrepreneurs for the first time afterwards. Great. Curriculum. I touched upon this just a little bit. So our curriculum is broken up into a few different buckets. Conceptually, you can look at the weekend sessions, right? These are the classes that will span across an entire term. A lot of them will have names that you're familiar with: marketing, finance, accounting, those business essentials that are a vertical in your organization. The analytical frameworks are classes like data models and decisions, or macroeconomics, negotiations. So those will span across the weekends. Our action learning courses are those courses where the core deliverable in the course is something that you're doing for real in the real world. All right. MIT's motto is mens et manus, mind and hand, that connection between the theory that you're learning and the impact that you're having in the real world, actually making something. And so that really spans throughout our curriculum. About a third of our curriculum is case-based. About a third of our curriculum is theory or theoretical, and about a third of our curriculum is action-based, and really spread throughout. Even when you're talking theory and case studies, you're sitting in a class that I just described a minute ago with experienced peers across a number of different industries and from different verticals within their organizations. So the case studies, the discussions, the theoretical, all really your classmates will have a lot to add to that. And so the conversations in the classroom play a lot on the experiences of the people in the room. The integrated modules, those are the week-long sessions that I talked about where you'll be on campus for 6 months at a time. And so I'm not going to spend too much time on the rest of the curriculum. We do have another webinar that you can watch or another recording you can find on the website. It's called Action Learning in the EMBA webinar. And that actually talks about the curriculum in a little bit more depth. So I will highlight one of our integrated modules, Innovation-Driven Entrepreneurial Advantage, or as we call it, Idea Week. And I think on the next slide, we have a little bit more information about Idea Week. So this is really focused, it's 1 week, deep dive focused on new product innovation, entrepreneurial strategy. It's introducing you to the MIT ecosystem, the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem around MIT and in the Kendall Square area. And it's project-based. So within that week, EMBA students will pitch ideas, meet with postdocs. They'll be actually vetting these ideas. So it starts with a pitch to your classmates to get them to work with you on your idea, and it ends with you and your team pitching to a team like a team of investors. Sometimes there are actual investors we have had. That's not the intention of the week, but it has happened before that there are investments made in projects there. So that's Idea Week. That's just one entrepreneurial focus that we have in our curriculum within the core curriculum of the Executive MBA program. There are a number of other courses that are part of our core courses: competitive strategy, marketing management, and organizational processes that every EMBA student will take. It's part of the core curriculum, and these courses are particularly valuable to people who are entrepreneurs, right? We also have, in addition to these courses that you can dive into, we have a number of electives that you can choose from in the January period. I didn't really go into it on the slide before, but every January, in addition to, because our curriculum is lockstep for the most part, we have built-in periods where you can customize. So in our January innovation period, you can choose to take pricing, you can take actually a lot of these. Now, as I'm looking through this list, it's combination of, and I see Megan laughing. This is a combination of some of our January electives and other classes that are spread throughout the entire program, right? We have so many choices that are that align with an entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial needs. So these courses are a combination of core courses and electives. Would be possible, as I'm looking through all of this and picturing our schedule in our mind, it would be possible to take all of these courses if you wanted to. All right. So this is within the EMBA program, right? Part of the core curriculum. MIT also offers a lot of options outside of the outside that are optional, additional, and that you have full access to. So I'll let Deborah talk a little bit more about the offerings outside of our program.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm going to start out by talking about the faculty who teaches these courses. And there are probably 40 some faculty in the program focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. I will highlight 3, starting with Fiona Murray. And as you can see here, she holds a number of titles. She is the Associate Dean of Innovation and Inclusion at Sloan, the William Porter Professor of Entrepreneurship, an Associate of the National Bureau of Economic Research, and co-director of MIT's Innovation Initiative. And she teaches 2 courses, as Sarah mentioned, Idea Week, which is that second module, and Idea Lab, if you choose that for your final project. She has a PhD from Harvard in applied science, and her interest really is in commercialization. So taking science from the idea to impact and mechanisms to link the community, universities with entrepreneurs, large corporations, and philanthropists. One of the things I find most interesting about Fiona is that she served as the British Prime Minister's Council on Science and Technology, and she was awarded a CBE award for her services to innovation and entrepreneurship in the UK. And this is an award just short of knightship. Next up, we have Scott Stern. And Scott is the David Sarnoff Professor of Management at Sloan. He teaches a couple courses, competitive strategy and entrepreneurial strategy. And last year, he won the Innovation in Entrepreneurship Pedagogy Award for his teaching from the Academy of Management for his entrepreneurial strategy course. He teaches along with competitive strategy, and he has a PhD from Stanford in economics. And his research is focused on economics and innovation and entrepreneurship with a focus on entrepreneurial strategy, innovation-driven entrepreneurial ecosystems, organizational design, and policy and management. And then last up, we have Bill Aulett. He is the managing director of the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship. He's a professor of practice at Sloan. He teaches one of our favorite courses, Introduction to Disciplined Entrepreneurship, has an SM award from MIT, and actually has a background. He's a serial entrepreneur 3 times over, having started out at IBM and then did come over to Sloan. And his research focuses on the creation and development of entrepreneurship education across all of Sloan and MIT as a whole. So academic offerings are really only a part of your experience at MIT. The other part is the community, and the community offers opportunities through the EMBA, through Sloan, and through MIT. So you're really considered a full-time student, so everything is open to you across the university. Within the EMBA, one of the favorites are fireside chats. This was started by our first class of 2012 and continues on today. And this is an opportunity where you get to know about your fellow students. They will tell you about what they're doing, where they came from, why they're at the school, find out a lot about future and current entrepreneurs. And then there is executive coaching and career networking, a whole host of student organized interest groups and peer networking. And within the EMBA, our students have their own entrepreneurship club that meets on Friday morning, where across the gamut from people who are starting out to students who are serial entrepreneurs. Then at Sloan, you have clubs, faculty, other students. You have the students in our class are members of the Sloan Senate. Any guest speakers are open to you as well. And that at MIT as a whole, the Martin Trust Center for Entrepreneurship is an education center for entrepreneurs. It's located right across the street from Sloan, so conveniently located. The Media Lab, where a lot of the research comes into play across really a host of different backgrounds. So what would be disparate parts to really come up with new innovative solutions. A number of conferences, including the Bioinnovations Conference, the Sports Analytic Conference, to name a couple, and the Global Alumni Network is open to you. You're really limited more by your time than what you could possibly take advantage of throughout the school, throughout MIT and the EMBA program. I'm going to dive in a little bit more to the Martin Trust Center. It's a great resource and is really kind of exceptional because it covers academics, research, and some of the action learning projects within the program. On the academic side, it brings together, various thought leaders in the field, experienced entrepreneurs to really connect them with the new venture community. So for anyone starting out, there's a whole host of really experience and education through for-credit, non-credit offerings as well. And then research is conducted on how to build entrepreneurial ecosystems and really educate that next generation of entrepreneurs. Faculty are involved across the university, including faculty from the School of Engineering, School of Architecture and Planning, as well as from Sloan. And there's a week called T=0 week, where successful entrepreneurs are invited back to campus to share their learning and experiences. And then that last action learning piece, which is really interwoven throughout the entire program, Our students have participated in the 100K competition, both as students and as mentors. And then other competitions, I can't possibly go into all of them, but there's the Delta V, there's one for the Clean Energy Prize. I know there was one for AI as well. And we can tap into our panelists when we get to that point, who will be happy to share some of the information that they have. And then to highlight many of the opportunities across Sloan, the Trust Center came up with this map. And there are probably more than 200 resources available across campus, fostering innovation and entrepreneurship. So I'm going to mention a few. And the MIT Sandbox Innovation provides teams of innovators up to 25K and in seed funding. And they're really tailored to educational opportunities, advising, mentoring, and really letting prospective entrepreneurs know what's available across campus, the various resources. There's the MIT Innovation Initiative, and this is co-led by Fiona Murray. And this is really combining opportunities for hands-on innovation and entrepreneurship, and again, access to the infrastructure at MIT. The Legatum Center for Development and Entrepreneurship supports students who are interested in creating ventures focused on challenges in developing countries. There's also a scholarship that goes along with that one. And then there's a licensing center that helps inventors to protect their technology and in licensing that technology to startups and existing companies. And so maker spaces, if you want to use laser cutters to make things or develop devices. And in addition to available within MIT, there are also external resources that are aligned with the school and willing to help students out. So to sum it up, I would say the ecosystem is a gold mine of riches for entrepreneurs. And with that, we are going to open it up to your questions, and you can submit them using the Q&A functionality. And I would like to introduce our panelists for tonight. So we have Ian from the class of 2020. We have Megan from 2022 and Jimmy for the class of 2021. And I'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight, sharing your experiences. Feel free to ask them anything. They are very forthright. Now is the time to get the tough questions out. And I'd like to start by having each of you introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about your company and then why you chose MIT. And we'll start out with you, Ian, and then Megan and Jemby.
Sure. Thanks for having me today. My name is Ian Brynjolfsson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Clara Technologies. We focus on the HR tech space, trying to get a better understanding of organizations at a skill and competency level in order to help companies hire better and make best of their resources. My history is quite different from a lot of others that sort of have gone into founding. I started off in the semiconductor industry, being a very nerdy engineer designing computer chips, heavily engineering oriented. But I found myself sort of drawn over time more to the project management and the execution side of things, eventually becoming an executive at a large semiconductor company called Synopsys. I looked at the MIT Executive MBA program and really drew me in, sort of intended to change my life in a lot of ways and just sort of take myself to the next level in my career. And to some extent at the beginning, I was really drawn to the idea of the degree rather than the process of going through. I ended up getting into the program and graduated in 2022. And through the process of that, I ended up actually connecting with the founder of Clara, Katie Hall. We were actually study group partners together for a while. We got to know each other really well. We developed a good respect for each other. But at the beginning, I really wasn't necessarily driven or drawn towards the entrepreneurial aspect of the program. And what I found after the exposure to all the ecosystem that MIT had, all the things that they had available to you, and it really started off in that Idea Week, which came, I think, in March of 2019. And that's when I sort of got the bug. But I didn't come in with this idea like Katie did. She'd been working on this idea well before and came to MIT with that intention. Whereas I, on the other hand, knew that I'm a good executor, knew that I could do operations, knew I could manage an engineering team, knew I could do all these things, but I wasn't the visionary. But I connected with somebody who was, and all visionaries need a good executor. And I became that. And my entry into the entrepreneurial space was through that connection. I took all the learning about system dynamics. I love that picture of Bill Ollett and Scott Stern. I love their classes. They were so amazing and inspirational, to the point where when I come back and try to take January electives, I try to take their courses whenever possible. And that was sort of the gateway for me to really enter into the entrepreneurial space, was everything that MIT had to offer. I hope that summarizes me fairly quickly, man.
Thank you, Ian. Megan.
Good evening, everyone. Megan Liu. I live in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So Western Canada. You could apply all stereotypes today. It's very cold and snowy outside. I am founder and CEO of a firm called Strad. Strad's roots are management consulting, and we have grown from there over the last several years. My story on why MIT was a notion of, coming in as a founder, having at that point upon application 4 years of experience in that role. I remember meeting Sarah and saying, what got me here is not going to get me there. And I'm looking for an experience to safely experiment, learn about myself, and not only transform myself as a leader, but transform the organization. So much like Ian's story, it is a place of multiple courses, multiple experiences, a generous, team of professors, an amazing community of classmates, where I, found myself and more, and have been fortunate to be able to scale Strad in doing that. I can definitely speak to the balance of running and operating a firm at the same time as traveling a lot, at the same time as going to school, and the pros and cons of that model. And I'd probably always err on the side of pros, because there's instant application to what you're learning and instant feedback to try on and test. So that is me.
Great. Thanks, Megan. And Baimi.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Baimi Ogunyomi. I'm from the EMBA class of 2021. We are the class that endured COVID-19, so we made it through. So yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm currently a chief entrepreneur in residence at Plume Health. Plume Health is the #1 digital healthcare startup for the transgender community. I'm also the CEO of Nugent DX, is a point of care testing company for feminine women's health. Let's just put it that way. A little bit about myself. My background is actually in engineering. I'm a hardcore engineer. I was actually in the oil and gas industry. Started out my career as a petroleum engineer, so not really a straightforward path, I guess, into entrepreneurship. At some point, decided to pivot my career. I started out in like the skincare, skin health type of industry with entrepreneurship. Had started my company Glam Tech, had fundraised, went through the seed round, was going into the next round when I'd learned about the Executive MBA program at MIT. My company was pivoting at the time into the dermatology health space, and I knew I needed a lot of help with the healthcare industry, so to say, with like connecting with a lot of doctors. And I'm not sure if they mentioned this today, but I remember in one of the pamphlets, it said I think 30-something% of the class is typically like in the healthcare sector. So for someone like me as an entrepreneur, knowing that I was pivoting into that space, I wanted to be in an environment where I could, reach out and just learn a lot from fellow executives that worked in healthcare, all the different doctors, and all of that. So that was very attractive to me about MIT. When it comes to entrepreneurship, I actually have these 2 books, so no lies. So they're not lying to you over here. So this is Disciplined Entrepreneurship. Not sure if you can see the book. It's by Bill Ollett. Took his class, was amazing. We may talk about that later on, but I definitely felt like, where was Bill when I started out as an entrepreneur? The other thing that I don't think we mentioned today was the Legatum Fellowship. I went through that program. It was great. I learned a lot. And it also helps with your tuition. So that's really important as well. So
The Legatum Fellowship,
yeah.
Amy, if you want to say anything more about that, it's for entrepreneurs who are focused, whose companies are focused on something that will help in the developing world, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm also originally from Nigeria, and my startup was also going to scale internationally. We were doing that. So I got an opportunity, or got selected to be the part of the Legatum Fellowship for that year. So yeah, just amazing things. You talked about the 100K and Sandbox. So I don't know. I'm glad to be here. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
So Gaby, we have a question, and since you're talking a little bit about healthcare from Simba, talking a little bit about healthcare focused on learnings you had as part of your EMBA experience.
Okay, there's actually a healthcare, I think, certificate program track as well that the MIT EMBA program has. Along with that, one other thing that wasn't mentioned here was, when you're part of the EMBA program, you can also, I don't know if you guys like to hear this word, but you can also take classes across the street at Harvard as well. So there was a great combination of both, like learning entrepreneurship and stuff at MIT and also at Harvard, and meeting with peers there. What else did they want to know?
Well, just out of curiosity, what class did you take at Harvard?
Oh. I took an entrepreneurship and finance class. So it was like a class that you applied accounting and finance to, like a project or something like you were working on, something I took there. Venture capital, I think it was like VC and something else, and one other class, I think.
I love that you brought that up, because it's part of, I think, whether or not you choose to take classes at Harvard, because I think most EMBA students won't, largely because the schedule is just difficult to do, right? Our classes sort of fit into your schedule, and it's blocked out 2 years in advance, and so that works for a lot of executives. But what it all highlights, you being able to take those classes, is you are a graduate student at MIT with all the same rights and access that any other graduate student at MIT has. And, the ability to take some classes at Harvard is part of that, but, it's also the clubs, it's also the access all across MIT.
Another thing I was going to point out was my last project was an idea lab. So at this point, I was looking at like the next thing I was going to work on, what was going to be my next startup idea with the company I'm also running right now. So that was great to take the class with Fiona. And we were able to apply everything we had learned in entrepreneurship into like my startup idea real time in class, and get feedback from all my other course mates and the professors and other like alumni and other really successful entrepreneurs from MIT Sloan that they brought back to talk to us. So that was great too.
Terrific. So there's a question from TJ, and you may not be able to answer it directly, but the question is, it seems like entrepreneurship would be easier to do during the full-time program, contrasting entrepreneurship successes between the EMBA and the MBA. So maybe focusing a little bit on how it worked for you within the EMBA, and Ian, in particular, for you, who came in not even thinking about getting and starting a company, and then Megan, you were in a different role because you're a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I guess I can talk to that first. It's hard to specifically answer the question comparing the MBA because I didn't do that program, but I'd have to say the real benefit of the executive MBA over the fellow program or what we call the baby MBA or the full-time MBA is that you're working with more experienced people, right? And so like you immediately get that value add of somebody who's been working on average 17 years in the workforce. They come from a different perspective and a different vantage point that really gives you more insight into how to solve problems and sort of look at things in different ways. And the program, the admissions program, does an amazing job of bringing in diverse viewpoints and backgrounds and culture to really sort of make you look at things in different ways. When Katie and to some extent myself are going through the program, the thing that I found the most interesting is you can take your existing idea and apply it into the classes. They really require, because of the requirement of being employed at the time, working on the MBA, working on your entrepreneurship idea, or working in your job, is so many of the courses require you, almost all of them require to use your current work as an example. Or in the case of Katie, the founder of the company that I'm at, every class she was in, she was using Clara as the example. So the pricing class she took, she had a whole group working on the pricing work for her, and that pricing sort of made the foundation for what we actually use for pricing today. System dynamics, competitive strategy, it all allows you and gives you that opportunity to sort of work on a real life problem while you're going through it. I was working on my own sort of like corporate issues at the time and found real value in that. But that's where I think the Executive MBA has a huge advantage over the other programs, is that they know that you're working and they require to use real life examples and the experience of the classmates that you're working with. And at the end of the day, I think that's the one thing that's sort of the most valuable out of the whole thing is the people around you. I think I recall Megan saying earlier, a lot of her classmates are now customers. And so that's a nice built-in advantage as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, Ian, maybe just to build on what you were saying, in addition to the practice that you get. So for every class, there's homework. When you're working on your job, and that job is the entrepreneurial venture that you want to explore, that just allows you to get feedback, because those papers are submitted to those profs that Deborah walked us to. And those experts, those thought leaders are giving you quite valuable real-time feedback, and that's only sharpening your skill. And so that real practice came in. I now look back and equate it to having 126 advisors and, times X number of professors who can act as, your thought leaders, your safe place to go and share problems with, to really explore. And the professors are so generous with their time. They will book extra time with you. They will help you through a problem that you might be having or wanting to explore a topic a bit deeper, a bit farther. And they themselves are happy to open up their own networks. So it can become quite an expansive ecosystem in which to really grow something at the same time.
Great, that's helpful.
Sarah, you had a question, I know, that you wanted to ask.
Oh, well, I think, at some point today, but yeah, we may as well go to that one now. One of our participants asked if there were any surprising benefits of attending the program that you weren't anticipating, and that came up throughout the program.
I was going to point out something really quickly that ties into the last
Great.
months here. One of the things that's really important for entrepreneurship, right, which your startup or your venture, is money. So when you're talking about the difference between the Executive MBA program and what we call the baby MBA or the traditional MBA program, is the people in your cohort actually have money, right? So if you're starting a company, I'm just keeping it real, and you need to raise funding, you have people in your class that can invest the first $25K, $30K individually into yours. So I've actually seen in my class, at some point, people got together and in less than 24 hours, we had like $1 million and something to invest into like Tesla or some other stuff. The startup I started, a couple people in my class invested in me. The other entrepreneur, the third from my batch. But anyway, during COVID, started a business and like had the whole class like, contribute and actually buy stuff, become customers. Also, you have executives that are leaders in their organizations, right? So if you have a great technology product or whatever it is, they can actually take it to a decision maker in their company, and you can get those first sales that are really important for you as a business owner if you're doing like B2B enterprise software, things like that, that are really important. So that's I wanted to point that out as well.
That's a really good one. I also see I see a thumbs, and some of you are upvoting questions, which is really helpful, helps us focus on where multiple of you are asking questions. And I see a few, plus a couple of upvotes that are asking questions along the lines of, does MIT teach you how to start a business, right? Teach you how to launch a business, or will our program teach you how to start one in software development or a tech business? And so I wonder what your take would be on that question. Do we teach you how to start a startup, and in particular one in the tech space? Or how would you describe it if not that exactly?
Interesting. So, okay, so I don't know. I would say I came in with a lot of experience in the tech space, so I can't really speak for people who had like no idea at all. But what I would say about MIT, I mean, we're like #1 like university in the world. So everywhere you're walking around at MIT, everybody's talking about tech, or it's slow. And I don't care if it's an app or I saw something about AI for discovering something in food, manufacturing, whatever you're trying to do. If there's somebody in there that can help you, they can build the product for you. That's not a problem. So yeah. So there are doctors that don't have a tech background, right? But you're sitting in a class with VPs that work at Google and have access to all the best engineers. So that's never a problem. I think when you take classes like Discipline Entrepreneurship or like Idea Lab, Idea Week, for the people, say like in biopharma who had no idea about, starting a tech company, like those classes, I think really helped them get an idea of like business models. We're talking about pricing, marketing, things like that. Yeah, I think it could help.
Yeah, if I was to add on to that, I would say there's kind of two parts to this. One is it comes back to your classmates, right? So, I keep going back to Katie as a great example, because she was not a tech. She is a tech founder, but she doesn't have a tech background. She found connections like, she was working with another classmate and then myself who have that tech background. And you sort of use those connections to pull together the teams and get an understanding. But fundamentally, the lessons that are taught related to entrepreneurship are not specific to, are so transcendental across all industries, all focuses and whatnot. They're giving you fundamental learnings and understandings that is applicable whether you are a tech company or whether you are trying to start some sort of an agricultural company. And so Bill Allet's class is one of the premier entrepreneurship class, but there's so many others outside of his class as well, that really sort of help to sort of build all these different pieces and put them together to teach you. And then, the final piece to pull that together is, MIT is obviously the leader in tech in the world, but, the one good thing that they do in the program is they give you an exposure to all these different aspects, like the quantitative side. If you really want to go further into the analytics side, you can do the analytics certificate. And that starts to teach you the basics of machine learning and AI. So if you want to learn it, it's there. And the best part about being at MIT is you're actually allowed to take any class at MIT, right? So you can go, and I did some classes outside that were specific to entrepreneurship and collaborative AI, right? That was, I was in a class of a mix of other executive MBAs and some fourth-year students. It was really interesting to sort of watch the mentalities of things. So if you want it, you can find it in MIT. It's the most entrepreneurship place I've ever really seen. And until you get in there, you have no idea just how crazy amazing it is for that.
Maybe the other piece I observed of classmates coming in wanting to learn the entrepreneurial journey, as well as start during was they did leverage a lot of the programs that Deborah talked about in terms of Sandbox, the 100K challenge, and then those that timed launching their startup at the end of the program applied and used that Delta V program as a way to go through from idea to launch. So I think part of the magic that I saw in folks coming in with, I think I'm going to pivot, was being strategic about where and how to put those programs across the 20 months. And almost using that as a bit of the placemat for their own accountability model of, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to use this program that will require me to go through these stages or these steps, and then I'll be ready. And then I'll go through this program. And it just, in many ways, it gave them the tools, the confidence, and the accountability to really dig in.
So something that kind of goes with entrepreneurship is there's a question about awareness of failures and kind of learning from your peers. So I guess if any of you could comment about things that you have learned from your peers, learned from the program, and learned about real life failures, either from whether it was something from the Trust Center, something from your peer group, or academic offerings.
Gonna say MIT folks are overachievers. We don't fail over here. No, I'm just
No, that is not true. So I would say actually I was working on a venture when I was about to exit, and there was a lot of external things that happened, but there were 2 or 3 ideas that we got to the point where we were looking for investment, and it that was ultimately a failure in the end, right? And each time you go through that, it's a huge learning experience. But doing it at MIT is a very safe place to fail, right? And so, you get that exposure, you get that feedback from the professors, the TAs, the judges when you do the competitions, and it's sort of each time you do that, you learn something and improve. And eventually we got to the point where, I'm in, something with seed funding and, at least 18 months of burn rate. So, it's kind of part of the process of learning.
Related to the idea of failure and a safe place to fail, one of our participants is asking about the idea lab option that you can choose instead of the global organizations lab in your second year. And so there are 3 labs you can choose in your second year. The question is coming from someone who has heard about this, so you can choose in your final semester instead of the international trip to work with some classmates on your own venture. And it's intended as it was created to have a safe space within the curriculum to try out a startup idea that might fail, might go nowhere, but you have a place within the curriculum to do it versus having to quit your job. And I know that, Bamie, I know you did that track. I'm not sure, Ian, if Megan or you did, but Bamie, do you want to talk a little bit about about the Idea Lab experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Idea Lab, it was great because you start out and they kind of give you like these frameworks about entrepreneurship, right? Like I said, talking about, understanding the problem you're trying to solve, like how big is your market. So for the experienced entrepreneurs, these may sound like, really easy things to just, breeze by. But for first timers that are like, oh, I want to create this new thing, and it's like, how many people are, need this, and what is the big problem that you're going to solve? Like, what is your pricing, and how many times is your customer acquisition cost, things like that you learn in marketing. And all of that was put, I think, little bits of everything we were learning in all the different classes, you kind of learn in, Idea Lab. And I was going to point out that is a great place for you to fail, right? So when you go into Idea Lab, I think there are a couple companies or people pitch like different ideas. So it may be like 10 different ideas or so at a time. And then you have maybe 5 to 8 people working on one idea. And not all those companies are going to end up being successful, right? Or get passed after graduation, right? So you may even just fail with the team. It wasn't the right team, you know, or you couldn't raise funding for whatever reason. Like, but yeah, but that was a great way for a lot of people who didn't have experience to start out learning how to start a company and how to fundraise, things like that. And I think what was really helpful was MIT and Fiona bringing other like Sloan, EMBA's alumni who had successful companies. So I think we actually got to meet like the founder of Zoom. I think when like the pandemic and everything was happening, and you know, they're super successful. So meeting other founders that have raised a lot of money and are really successful helped out as well. So you can kind of see yourself in them too. So you're not as scared to start a company. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bamie. So we have one more final question. I realize we did not get through everyone's questions. There were quite a few. Thank you for all your questions. But in wrapping up, what is one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners tonight? And we'll start with you, Ian.
So I was actually answering some questions. It was actually partly directly into what you're asking. So this is perfect. I can get a double whammy. I think my biggest advice is, you know, really take advantage of the ecosystem, right? You know, you may feel, you know, when you go in, I think a lot of people think, okay, I'm just going to go in and like take the classes, but MIT opens you up to so many different things, like spend time, you know, getting to know your classmates, spend time to really learn about the ecosystem, the opportunities that it has. I mean, that one map of the campus with all the different places for entrepreneurship, I mean, I think I explored it like 3 or 4 of them, and they were overwhelming on their own. I mean, you could just like keep going and just really go all over the place. So, you know, I'd have to say there's very few real special diamonds in the world. And I consider MIT, and especially the Executive MBA program, to be that place where you can really go and in a safe way, really transform yourself and make your, you know, learn more about who you are and really give the chance to try different things. You know, and I mean, I even asked the director of the EMBA program if I could do it over again, and she said no. But you know, it really, I think my advice to you is, you know, if you're thinking about doing an MBA, do it. If you're thinking of deciding between another MBA and the Executive MBA, do the Executive MBA. It's just like there's so many advantages to it. And then you know, after that, like you don't have to actually do a startup coming out of the program. Like there's so many different options and things that you learn about it. Like you could be an entrepreneur in residence, you know, really transforming your existing large company. You know, all these lessons about entrepreneurship, you know, apply there. But if you're really looking at, if you have that itch to start something, whether you're the visionary or whether you're the executor, there's so many things that help connect these people together and put you in a place that really sort of launches your idea and launches your program. And then the last thing I'd have to say is that MIT email address opens so many doors. It's amazing.
Megan.
Okay, it's a hard act to follow, Ian. I thought about 2 things. The process is just as important as the summit or the end. So I think in entrepreneurship, the process is important, and the journey of your degree. And to your point, to Ian's point, trying to acquire and get to know the institution and get exposure to as much as you can is really important. And I guess my own learning, you know, now a couple of months post-graduation is it really starts an amazing journey after. So know that there's so much more to come, and your access to that institution isn't over. So even if you don't get after all of those dots on the map that were shared, those doors are open for a lifetime.
And Bamie, your words of advice.
Okay. I have two things. So the first one I'll advise is if you do get privileged to come into the MIT EMBA program, just come in and be a sponge, right? Come in like open to learn. And most especially your first semester. Because I think there's some people come in and that first semester, everyone's trying to prove why they're there, like why they were selected. I'm also smart, I'm smart, you're smart. You're all smart, right? Like you wouldn't be selected if you didn't have something great to bring to the table. So just, have confidence in yourself and go in there and just be a sponge, be open to learn from everybody, right? When you get into the, walk into Sloan, like I would talk to the quote unquote baby MBAs because they're in the heart of technology as well. They're starting the Snapchats and they know what all is going on, right? That some people in your executive MBA program may not know what's going on or what the market really needs, right? As an entrepreneur, they may have the money, they may not understand that other part. So just being a sponge, talking to the professors, like Ian said, I'm going to, all of the different schools, engineering, and then just learning, going across the bridge, just be a sponge, just learn as much as you can. And then the second thing I'm going to say, and this is going to be a healthy brag for MIT, but before I came to MIT, I'd been to Stanford, I'd been to Wharton, right? So when it was time for me to choose where would be the program, I would do an executive MBA program. So let's talk about what do we feel like, honestly, are the top 3, top 4 business schools for entrepreneurship? There's Harvard. Well, they don't have an executive MBA program, so that's not going to work out for you, okay? There's Stanford. Stanford does not have an executive MBA program, so that's not going to work out for you. They have a master's of management, but like Ian said, it's not an MBA. So just take that out the way. Are you going to go to Duke? Are you going to Columbia? Are you going to Cornell? MIT is the best school in the world, best place to get your MBA at this stage in your career. Amazing professors, amazing cohort of people. I mean, so I don't know, it was like a simple, it was a simple, straightforward decision, guys. It's the best place.
Terrific.
Best place.
So Ian, Megan, and Amy, I can't thank you enough. We all thank you for sharing your experiences and welcome. So application is open now. You will see that there are 5 rounds starting in January on the 12th, final round on May 4th. Each deadline has a time at 11:59 p.m. where the deadline date closes. If you apply by a given date, you are then given a decision by a certain date. Interviews will begin mid-February. We have a number of other upcoming events. So some in person and some virtual. In December, we are having an admissions advisor chat for anyone who has questions on the application itself. Then online webinars focused in particular topics, one on healthcare, one on technology. And then we will be in Texas starting in January, Houston, Austin, and Dallas. And you can find and sign up for these events on our website. We will be posting, I believe the rest of the events are posted or will be posted in the very near future for the rest of next year. And then in brief, if you are really looking to challenge yourself, challenge your convention as you're moving forward in your career, you're looking to broaden your knowledge across business and analytic tools and your network. And if you want to have an impact, more impact in your organization, in the broader world, please reach out to us. We would look forward to your application. And with that, I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight and enjoy the rest of your evening.